I've never told anybody this publicly, so you guys are the first. Oh man, this one's such a juicy one. I think people forget that I actually had like a full ass career as an opera singer, and I used to perform in front of thousands of people. Nothing is as bad as it was. The vulnerability on display when performing opera or singing and like performing a competition, and then afterwards getting feedback on the competition sung. I sang one of the most beautiful performances of my life. I'll never forget this because I was so upset. I was so mad. I was in grad school and we were doing the competition for money for like, it was like $10,000 and I was broke. I sang so fucking well. And that's not just my own feedback. That was feedback from my professors. It was feedback from the jury, from the judges themselves, except for one. And when I sat down with this one woman, I've never been so proud of a performance probably in my entire life. And afterwards I sat down. I'm talking like within like 2 hours of singing, right? So you're like hyped up, you find out that you didn't win money, it hurts, and then you have to stand in line and get feedback to hopefully like get people to recognize that you're worthy. I'll tell you another story in a second, just so that we could talk about how shit the previous career I had was compared to this current career. She said, so how did you think you did? And I was like, I thought it was one of the best performances I've ever done. And she goes, oh, well, okay. I actually felt that this, and this, and this. And then she just like laid out all of the things that I did poorly. But then the other story, check this out. I was being groomed for a position at a very prestigious young artist program called, and I had auditioned for them multiple times. I'll tell you one more story about how fucked up the industry was and how like a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with now, while it definitely sucks and it hurts me a little bit, the stuff I used to receive was way worse. I was being groomed for this position, and I got a personal email on my birthday from the person in charge saying, hey, I want you to audition because I want you to come and be a part of this program. And I said, holy fuck, I've never received a personal invite for a program like this before. At this level of prestige. I had hemorrhaged a vocal fold and I couldn't sing for several months. And so I did the audition and it set me back about 6 months. I couldn't talk for a month. Like I couldn't phonate. My chords wouldn't come together, and it literally sounded like this. That's how bad the blood vessel on the vocal, like your vocal folds are this big. So when you pop a blood vessel on one of them, what ends up happening is they come together, but they come together with a little bit of an indent. And so it doesn't fully close. And that's what it should do. When the hemorrhage happened, the blood, but it's important. The blood actually kind of spilled out like this. And so it ends up being slightly deformed. And so I had to go for, I think it was about 4 months of vocal therapy. And they had to like use the scope into the throat, and they look down at the chords. And so I couldn't speak, and I had to like do all these exercises to regain my strength. So it was actually like a pretty fucking miracle, because I had a teacher in grad school who literally popped both blood vessels. He sneezed, he popped both blood vessels, and he wasn't able to sing ever again. So the fact that I was able to recover, so he literally like had a beautiful voice, and he literally could never sing again. Now he could still teach singing, but he couldn't like teach it through example. Like, you know how I'm like, oh, do it like this, like the phrases ba da da ba da ba da ba da, like that. He couldn't do that. So his career ended and he had to go into teaching. But anyway, so I recovered, was able to sing in an opera, and it really did set me back on a major. I've never talked about this publicly, actually, by the way. And so I sang this audition for, and then of course I wanted them to like me so bad. So I was like, oh, by the way, I'm singing in this opera tomorrow. I'd love for you to come. And they were like, yeah, sure. Well, leave us some tickets and we'll look into it. Never hear anything. I'm like with an ex-girlfriend. We're like having issues. I have like the flu. I'm like emailing all the time, never getting an answer. And then finally someone answers me, and they said, hey, it was the same person. She goes, hey, really, you moved in a direction that we didn't like. It's funny because I had sung for this company 5 times. And usually what happens is you get 3 different kinds of emails. You get an email that says, yes, let's hear your audition, or yes, you're in the program. You'll get a second email if you don't get into the program that says, hey, we didn't get in, let's waive your application fee, because you're also having to pay for application fees back in the day when I was doing the young artist circuit. And that would be like $47. It was $45 to apply, just to apply, and you don't get that money back. Okay, so think about the sunk cost of all the applications that one has to fill out at a young artist program for auditions only. to be heard for 10 minutes. Then we'll take it one step further. The third email, please don't sing for us again. We've decided that you're not a good fit for the program. And so I got groomed to do that audition. They were like, yes, we want to hear you because we think that there's potential. Guess which email I got? The third one. After auditioning for them 5 times over the course of 5 years, which is why every year of my 20s, I said, ooh, next year's my year. Next year's my year. Next year's my year. Don't you think that will kill someone emotionally? Don't you think that's going to kill someone's desire to actually show up and do the thing? That's what singers deal with at that level. One more story. Check out this crazy story. A dream for anybody. I remember that someone had suggested to me to do the audition. And so I got in thanks to a recommendation, which also requires people knowing who you are, knowing how you sing, and knowing what you're capable of, okay? And at the same time, I was also auditioning for another place that was in Philadelphia. So what happens is I go, and let me just tell you what this experience was like. Again, we're talking about criticism and not being able to handle the kitchen, and also like not being able to maintain the heat of the space, or like people being upset at me for this, that, and the other. Now, obviously, I think this space is much, much bigger. I have reached more people through my videos for a relatively decent sized channel, I would say. It's like small to mid-sized channel. I'm very proud of the work I've done here. It's like 81 million views, right? That's colossal. I mean, like I would have never done that with the opera career. So I would never take that for granted, regardless of any anger or hate pointed towards me, or like upsetness, because that's like, I mean, it's changed my whole life, and I'm just so fucking grateful. So I go there and I show up, and I work with the pianist, and I work with the coach. This was the first round, and there were 3 rounds of the audition. You have 5 arias: Italian, French, English, German, and 1 extra that you think fits your voice the best. I was really into French repertoire at this point in my career, in my training, and in my like sort of like trying to make or break it. And I was starting with this aria from the opera Faust by Charles Gounod. It's a really good opera. We've actually watched it on the channel, and I think I'm going to bring back opera with an opera singer, because those are really fun, where I like break down the things that are happening in the moment. I think those are really cool. I haven't done it in like a year. I knew this aria like the back of my hand. It's called Salut demeure chaste et pure. Hello, beautiful, chaste, and pure one, essentially. Faust is talking about the house of Marguerite, and he's working with Mephistopheles, the devil, to get Marguerite. He makes the bid with the devil. You know the story about Faust. If you don't, totally look it up. It's by Goethe, the most famous German poet of the time. He's the Shakespeare of Germany. Anyway, so I sing it, and let me tell you the kind of shit that happened at this audition. This was an audition, like a coaching audition. I start, they stop. I start, they stop. No, the vowel's wrong. No, it's actually Can you do a little bit rounder? No, you're missing it. I'm talking every 4 seconds. And so what do you think happens to your mental state when someone is constantly critiquing you every 3 seconds? You start to implode. Doesn't matter how tough you are, doesn't matter how thick-skinned you are. If someone nuances every single thing you do, that shit will break you. And that is the point. The point is they break you. That's actual backseating. Yeah. That's a funny way to put it. So this goes on, and then the audition happens, and we do the thing, okay? Then I go home. I go to my buddy. I'm staying with my friend for a couple days, because the audition's supposed to be a couple days. Then we are supposed to sing on stage for James Levine, who is passed away. He had a lot of allegations come out that he was grooming young men, so on and so forth. But again, this is one of those situations where it's like, he's one of the best conductors in the world at the time. One of the most famous conductors ever. So many recordings have James Levine conducting. So what do? Do you say, wow, that's really fucked up, I'm still going to listen to this? Or do you make the personal choice to not listen to any of it? We have this a lot in the arts. Anyway, that's separate topic. We're supposed to find out how our audition goes with those 2 coaches that night or the next night. And then we're supposed to know whether or not we're going to sing for James Levine so that we can go home. Because mind you, I don't live in New York City. So I'm like sitting there, a day goes by, 2 days go by, 3 days go by. Now Wednesday, I'm supposed to take the train out. I'm supposed to go back to where I'm living at the time. 4 days go by. Now it's Friday. Now I've been staying with my friend for a full fucking week in a studio apartment where I was only supposed to be there for 3 days. So I email, I'm calling. I never got a response. I never got an answer. I just left. I was like, well, I gotta go. I'm leaving. So I just leave. So they ghost me. Then I sing for another place in Philadelphia, and then they offer something to me. But even that audition, that was a constant stopping and starting, same exact thing. So check this out. I go to sing. My friend already found out that she was in the program. She sang for James Levine on that Wednesday. And her and I were like, what the fuck is going on? How come I'm not? Okay. It was a week later, excuse me, because I got the offer from, right. It was a week later. And they say, hey, we want you to re-audition. Not only did they ghost me, but they also were going to make me redo the whole fucking thing over again. Oh, I said no, and I took the other gig. And that's where I was for 3 years. That place was even worse. That place, they would dehumanize you. They would call you by the voice type. They would be like, tenor. Oh, you want to hear one more story? Final dress rehearsal. And if you don't know what a dress rehearsal is the final performance you do with costume as a rehearsal, as a practice. We are opening in 2 days. I can't hear the orchestra. This is my second time with the orchestra. Okay. Theater's really small. The orchestra's in front. As I come out, I'm playing the Duke of Mantua in an opera called Rigoletto by Giuseppe Verdi. It's based off of Victor Hugo's Le Roi s'amuse. I don't know if anybody's ever read Victor Hugo or Le Roi s'amuse, but that's what the Rigoletto is based off. This is just tangential details that don't matter, but if anybody's interested, it's an 1832 play. So we go out, and the first thing I have to do, the Duke is a womanizer. The Duke is a piece of shit. The Duke loves money. He's sleazy. He's a scumbag. He comes out and he's like, what the fuck is this? Questo quella. He's like, who cares? I'll take this woman or this woman. I don't give a shit. I'll take any woman because that's what I do. That's literally questo quella, this one or that one. That's literally how the opera starts. Bum, 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 bum. Questo quella per me pari sono a quantal. It's that fast, right? Dunka, 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 dunka. And while I'm singing, right before I start the second verse, I have to, which is actually funny. This is my ex-fiance at the time. Or she was my fiance, but my ex-girlfriend. I have to scoop under her, pick her up onto my shoulders. I have to then set her down, slide into the other girls, and I have to then like massage them while preparing to sing. And then I have to come in for the second verse. This is while I'm singing. Not in between, excuse me, while I'm singing. How the fuck? I still don't know. So this is what happens. We have to stop because I'm off. And the conductor, he was an old man. I don't even know if he's still alive. He probably is. He's ruthless. And he goes, you're late. And I go, I'm sorry, I can't hear the orchestra. No excuses. Pay attention. What are you doing up there? There's 50 people around me. There are 60 people in front, probably, actually no, it's more like 40 people in front of me in the orchestra. And I'm being singled out. Tenor, you're late. Don't make me have to do this again. We restart. We reset from the top. I fuck up again because I cannot hear. One thing that you don't know about singing is that when you're singing, especially opera, you can't hear around you. That's why they have monitors on the top of the stage so that it points down so that you can like hear the orchestra. Because when you're singing, because of the amount of physical body required, you can't actually hear things super well. So I fuck up again. And then he stops the orchestra. And normally what ends up happening, what you're supposed to do in a final dress rehearsal is go from the beginning to the end without stopping. So he stops again. You know what? What's the problem up there? And I go, nothing. I just can't hear. And I'm starting to get pissed. Well, you're gonna have to figure it out. Let's go. Come on. Are you a professional? I'm sort of paraphrasing. And then he says, you know what? Let's skip it. I've never had this happen in my entire life. At this point, I've been doing opera like in rehearsal and in performance, and I probably sung 1,000 or more performances probably. We move on. He's like, whatever, let's just move on. I can't deal with this today. So I never got to do the performance until the actual opening in front of an audience. Now, granted, the audience was about 150 people or so. Still, those are like, in the theater was full of the biggest donors of the opera company, of the school, because opera is like a donor-based system. Long story short, opera sucks. That's just like 4 stories, guys. I mean, like most of my career. One thing that's really crazy, I would get so nervous. I've never told anybody this publicly, so you guys are the first. I used to be so nervous before performances that I physically would get sick. I couldn't function without basically overdosing on Imodium and on Pepto-Bismol. I'm talking like 16 Pepto and like 4 Imodium. Imagine what that does to your body. That shit will destroy, well, that shit will do nothing because there's no shit to, it will. And what then ends up happening is you get dry mouth. And so I would literally be singing and I could basically not function because my stomach was so in pain, plus the amount of medicine that I was having to take in order to literally survive performances. Someone asked a question like, how do I feel about my current career? Dude, I probably would be dead. Realistically, I don't even think that that's a real exaggeration. Because when I was in grad school, I started getting panic attacks. Have you ever had a panic attack in front of 4,000 people? Shit is fucking wild. So I started getting panic attacks in rehearsals. I started getting panic attacks in performances. Because the thing is, the show must go on. You have to do it. Because then otherwise you don't get paid. My last gig was in France. I didn't speak French at the time, which is why I chose to learn it, so I could communicate with people. The loneliness of being in a foreign country where you don't speak the language. And thankfully, the conductor who you've met, Robert Toohey, who does the FromSoft videos with me, he's an amazing person. He's become good friends. I got him to buy a Nintendo Switch. I've changed his life. He's going to come back on and talk about how he became a gamer thanks to me. That gig, he spoke English, and then I had a friend, a colleague, Dario, who's from Sicily, who spoke Italian. So I was able to speak to him. But my stomach would be so bad. Every day, I lost 30 pounds in 7 weeks. It was 20 pounds, excuse me, because I was not eating except for one meal a day, which OMAD is actually a perfectly fine way to lose weight. But like, I remember my ex-fiance had come to visit and she goes, oh my God, you look like a waif. I was eating eggs and zucchini and rice in the morning. And then one day a week, I would eat French food, like this blueberry compote with duck at this like most like kind of shitty looking bar. And they had literally like the French, say what you want about the French, but the cuisine is fucking incredible. If you ever get the chance to go to France, eat just anything. I had the best chicken of my life in France. I eat a baguette every day. Oh, I got stopped by the police in Reims because they thought that I was up to no good. And they followed me into the alley, and I almost got shot because I was wearing headphones and I didn't hear them. And I was like, it feels like something's coming up behind me. I turn around, it's a fucking police car. It's a fucking police car. And I'm like, oh, what the fuck? Because I was so nervous walking to the theater that I saw the cops and I quickly turned around to go in the opposite direction to see if the door was locked because my OCD was sort of like unhinged at this point. I wasn't on medication. They thought that I was up to no good. And so they come up behind me, 3 of them. And mind you, I speak fucking English, but I also speak French. And so they come up to me and they're talking to me in French. And Ross, yeah, the champagne police, that's so fucking funny. And I go, pardonnez-moi, je suis anglais. I'm not English, I'm American. Je suis anglais, pardon, anglais, ce n'est pas ma première langue. Pardonnez-moi, je chante le théâtre de Reims. They're out there. The woman comes up to me, they check my pockets, in which I have an apple and like fucking Imodium and Pepto. Which is still really fucking funny to me. I'm like, I'm just making sure that my door is locked. I'm staying at this Airbnb. She's like, well, we have to come with you to make sure that the door is locked and confirm that it's actually your apartment, your Airbnb. So I go, I unlock the door, I relock it, and then I go off on my merry way. So like, then I go to a rehearsal. Man, I've got so many fucking stories, you guys. So like, oh man, this one's such a juicy one. I'm not going to say their name because I don't want to drag them through the mud. There's no reason to do that. I had done a performance. It's a 2-parter. My first professional opera was in 2013 at a place called... I was singing Mitch in Streetcar Named Desire. If you've never read Streetcar Named Desire, it's a fantastic play by Tennessee Williams. It's an incredibly complex sociological story. Like it delves into human character. And if you write it down, that and we'll watch Rigoletto together. I think that'd be really fun. All of my colleagues made $6,000 to $8,000 on their performance. Now, I will never hold this against them because, first of all, the guy that gave me this role passed away, so rest in peace. And also, like, it made sense because I was a young artist for that company, and then they decided to throw me a bone and let me have this lead role, one of my first professional roles. I got paid $3,000, $1,500 a night. That is nothing. But for a 20-something, I was like, holy fuck. This is the biggest paycheck I've ever made. $3,000 in a weekend? Ain't that bad. But it could have been 6. And it could have been 8, and it wasn't. So that fucking sucks, right? The director was a big fan. We had worked together before. I was really excited to see him. You know, not bad. It was nice. Several years later, I'm in at this opera school that I told you about, right? I get invited to go back to, and he's in, for those of you that are in Europe. And I went to school, and I was like, oh my God, I'm singing, I'm covering Covering means to understudy. It means that in case someone gets sick, you go up and perform. I'm covering one of the most famous tenors of all time, Marcello Giordani. Rest in peace. He died of a heart attack a couple of years ago. Complicated man, like most opera singers are, with his own issues and baggage and ways of being, but he was kind to me. I'm really sad that he passed. He was not very old. He was maybe 60 something. This really sucks. He was at the time one of the most famous opera singers on the planet. Like I had DVDs of him, so imagine me. And I was making $4,000 to sing a smaller role in the opera, which is very common in the opera world, but it's also fucked up because the opera world, they want you to understudy and they want you to sing the smaller roles, even though you're meant for the bigger roles. And what do you think that does? It creates a sense of perpetual insecurity because if you're constantly singing the smaller roles, no, I'm not that complicated. If you're singing the smaller roles all the time, do you really think that then when it's your turn to step into the bigger role, you're going to feel confident enough to actually step in and sing the bigger role? The answer is fucking no. It serves as cheap labor. It helps the opera company and it theoretically helps you. Ideally, it helps you, but I have a lot of colleagues that never went anywhere despite doing all the young artist programs and trying to build the career. I remember being so fucking nervous because I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm going back after like 4 years. They're going to welcome me with open arms. I'm so pumped. I know the conductor. You've actually seen him if you've seen the Non-Gamer Reacts video. He conducted Chris Allen. He conducted My Tosca. Young man. We went to school together. So I was like so fucking pumped because I like Chris. I like the company a lot. Never mistreated me. I had a minus all the bullshit in grad school, which will be a separate conversation. That's a whole bunch of other expose shit. But oh God, that besides the panic attacks. So I have to do the first week of rehearsals because Marcello is doing another gig. And at that time, remember how I talked about how bad my anxiety was? I was trying things because I had undiagnosed obsessive compulsive disorder, which will fuck your life up if you're not careful. And I'm so glad that I take medicine to control it because that shit will ruin your fucking life. I'm taking beta blockers. Beta blockers regulate your heart rate and they make it so that you're not hyper nervous. Like you might still be nervous, but it'll regulate your heart rate. You can still kind of do your job. And it's supposed to be a small dose. I found this out after. It's supposed to be like 0.3, 0.5 milligrams, which is probably like depending on if you have a 10 milligram pill, it's a half of a half. Unrelated to the topic, but you might as well know. I'm taking 20 because the doctor wasn't like, you should test this out. And my dumbass went and fucking took 20 milligrams. So I show up for the first week of rehearsals. Yeah, palpitations, panic attacks, all that other stuff. I am in the fucking clouds. So I show up and it's going fine. What ends up happening is this director chooses me to be the punching bag. And so every day I'm getting verbally abused. He goes, "Hi, I went to the same school you did. Where did you go?" As if to say that we have a different sort of approach to performance. "Why did you cross here?" And I'm talking like in front of like 60 people, like my castmates. And everyone sees it, but no one says anything. "Why are you crossing here? You're ruining the entire scene. Why would you do that?" Then, check this out. The stage is a rake. And the stage, what a rake means is it's elevated. And what it does is it helps with the perspective of the audience. If a stage is flat, it kind of just is flat and it doesn't elevate the rake is supposed to elevate the scenery so that it feels more in your face. It's kind of like a 3D effect. And there's a chess table. I'm a pretty big guy. I'm 6'2". That's 73 inches around. No. Sorry, just some levity. So I'm supposed to be attacked by the main bad guy because in this role, I'm playing his subordinate. And so he's supposed to walk towards me and I'm supposed to hit the chess table, catch myself and be like, as he like confronts me for why I didn't do a good job, right? That's the moment in the opera. And so it happens, but I'm always like hitting it below the knees. And so I'm actually afraid that I'm going to fall. Because it's unsafe. Like it really should be hitting me in the ass to make sure that I can actually like stop myself. Because if it's hitting below your knees, you actually like could potentially like fall backwards, and that would really fucking suck. Because again, it's a rake. All the chess pieces would fall into the pit. The pit is where the orchestra is during a performance. It's all bad. You don't want any of that. The whole time I'm kind of like stressing out about it because it's like kind of dangerous. As I'm backing up, this is, mind you, this is like weeks and weeks and weeks. I really should have quit this performance because the abuse was to the point that I didn't want to go to rehearsal. That's how I knew. And I was always not wanting to go to rehearsal, but I really didn't want to go to rehearsal because I was like actually mentally being assaulted. and mentally suffering because of someone else's ineptitude to be a good person and to highlight all the things that I was doing badly while he didn't do it to anybody else. The worst part was that when Marcello actually showed up, he had talked mad shit about Marcello. But then the minute he showed up, guess what he fucking did? He brown-nosed him. Oh, Marcello, whatever you want to do, because Marcello had done it the role like 200 times, right? So like, how are you gonna like tell someone who's done something 200 times to do it differently? You really can't. One of my colleagues was like, they pay you to sing, not think, because I was getting so flustered. Because I'm like, I'm being abused, actually abused by this motherfucker. And I just have to just shut the fuck up and just mind my own business. And so this is weeks and weeks and weeks. So we get to the final performance. We're on stage for a dress rehearsal with the piano and in the costume. That's what a dress rehearsal means, right? There's a thing called the God mic where the director will be sitting in the audience, and as they're making sure that everything works well, they'll be calling out certain things and whatever. I'm walking backwards towards this chess table. I'm wearing heels about maybe like an inch, like not big or anything. I'm walking backwards. I'm like in a fucking like colonial outfit. I walk into the chess table. I do it in a way that it looks bad because again, I'm really nervous to hurt myself. All of a sudden over the God mic, I hear, "What's going on over there? What's going on? You have one job. What are you," I'm paraphrasing again. "What are you doing?" And I tell you, I am not an angry person. I'm incredibly patient, and I would say I'm genuinely a pretty kind person. I have a lot of tolerance for bullshit. When I tell you, I picked this chess table up with every ounce of my being, and I'm like seeing bright fucking red. I pick this table up and I go like I'm about to fucking like throw this fucking thing across the stage to hit him. The guy that was playing Scarpia, my boss in the opera, puts his hands on my shoulders and he says, "It's not worth it, dude. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. Relax. It's not worth it." And he saves me from most likely getting fired, even though I should have fucking quit. The guy I'm sharing the dressing room with, I watch him have a heart attack. I come out of the bathroom and I go, "Hey man, I'm sorry that I'm constantly going to be in the bathroom. I get really nervous. I have to take this, this, and this, and this." He's like, does it smell like gasoline out there?" I was like, "No, I don't think so." I'm looking at him like in the mirrors of the dressing room, with the famous mirrors with the lights and stuff. I see his head tilt back. He turns purple, starts shaking. I'm like, oh my fucking God. I run to the hallway where all the tech people are. I'm like, oh my God, something's wrong. I need help. I need help. We run back in and they fucking like do chest compressions and all this other stuff. I mean, I saw my grandfather have an issue once with a chainsaw. Holy fuck. He was chopping down a tree and God bless him, God rest his soul. And my dad was like, something's not right. So we sat him down and instantly his eyes roll into the back of his head and he starts turning yellow. And my dad saved my grandfather's life because he literally was holding a chainsaw. So I had a similar, and I ran to call 911 and stuff. So I had a similar like inkling. So anyway, so they're doing chest compressions. Eventually they take him away. God rest his soul too. He ended up dying at another point. I actually saved his life. Can you believe that? I genuinely saved this man's life because if I wasn't there, or if I had stayed on the toilet, thank God I came out and felt shame. He would have died if he had been in that dressing room alone. Can you imagine that? So anyway, so we have to go on. We have to do the show. After that, I'm like, God bless the people at opera, because I'm like sitting in there. There's like fucking like needles and like bandages and shit on the floor. And I'm just like sitting there like shell shocked. Like, what the fuck did I just experience? Thank God for the artistic director at the time who was like, "You want to get a different dressing room?" And I was like, "Yes, please. I am not well." And so I go and I share the dressing room with somebody else and it's fine. So then the final dress rehearsal. Okay, this is now after 4 weeks, and opera performances operate in a really weird way because of money. You get 2 weeks to rehearse, which is different than in Europe. In Europe, we had literally like a full 4 weeks to rehearse. It was wild. I've never experienced that in my entire life. It was crazy. We have 2 weeks in USA for bigger companies, most companies. And then 1 week with the tech, which is like preparing for the stage. So it's 3 weeks. And then the performances are a weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Friday, Sunday, whatever. So the final dress rehearsal, so we have 1 day off in between, and then we have a performance at the night on 7:30 on night on Friday. The final dress rehearsal, after it's all done, mind you, this director had taken a shit ton of time to actually get through the like staging process. And so we didn't really finish the opera. Like we finished it, but it like was kind of like thrown together and shit. He pulls me aside, and something you don't do because of the union, is you don't keep people after the time. So when a rehearsal ends at 10, doesn't matter where you are, you stop at 10 o'clock. Something I fucking hate is when people will keep you after, because it's disrespectful. Because it's like, I've already been here the whole day, and now you're going to keep me. He pulls me into the dressing room with one of the chorus members who was like a local guy. And mind you, I'm like doing the like opera performance. I'm like getting a degree. This is like my third fucking degree at this point. Like, I mean, I was in school for like basically like 7 years. He pulls me aside into the dressing room and he's like, look, I know you wish you were singing the lead, but like, if you don't do the ending correctly, you will ruin this show. I know you don't want to do this. I know you're not really interested in being this secondary character, like all this bullshit about me that is not true, but you just wanted to get under my skin. He goes, but you're gonna ruin the show. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, I was mad, but what are you gonna do? When you're in a position of weakness, I was enraged, but I can't do anything because I'm in a position of weakness by my inherent being in that production and being in that like dynamic with a boss. Now, granted, it's only 4 weeks and then you go off and do your own thing, right? And you can move on. But like those 4 weeks can be fucking hell. Long story short, they bring in someone new after that guy had the heart attack. They bring in a new person. Opening night, they don't call anybody else. They could have rehearsed it just with the new guy. But this guy says that I need to be there. And so I come there with all that nervous energy that I've already told you about. I'm literally about to sing in front of 4,000 people. 4,000 people. Can you even fathom what that looks like? That's 3 tiers of a theater pushed all the way back, and they're fucking looking right at you. That's 4,000 people. I mean, like 4,000 people is fucking crazy. I'm almost done, I swear. And so I'm like, dude, why am I here? This is my opening night too. I have nothing to do with this. There's no connection here. Like, you can do this without me. I can't say that, because I'm in a position of weakness. So I just do my marks, I do my thing. He starts critiquing me, the director. I'm not even doing that role that day. Marcello's there. And so then whatever. Thankfully, the thing happens. I'm like a nervous mess every day. I'm like basically nearly shitting myself every day. Fucking hate my life. Like, but I make my $4,000. And then the show's over. I'm fucked up about it. You know, this guy emails me and he's like, hey, I have an opportunity for you. And at this point, I'm singing lyric tenor repertoire. And lyric tenor repertoire is lead repertoire. That's what I was studying for. That's what I was doing. I wasn't doing the secondary parts. And after all, remember that the point of why I was there was because I was actually there in case Marcello got sick. So I could step up and sing Cavaradossi, which I've sung like 6 times. It's my favorite. Tosca is my favorite opera. It's an incredible opera. If you've never seen an opera before and you want to watch one, Tosca is the perfect opera to watch. You have a great villain, an amazing heroine, a terrific love triangle. As a tenor, you die at the end. You get shot by firing squad. And I have a video of that I'd love to show you at some point, because you have to practice how to die. It's so cool. But it's also weird because there are people pointing guns at you and you have to like, oh, you know, it's awesome. It's so much fun. Tenors never die because they're always the love interest. Anyway, he emails me and he says, I have an awesome opportunity for you. Do you want, it's for Nick in La Fanciulla del West, which is another Puccini opera. But Nick is like the most secondary character of all time. He's a great role, really super character driven role, like a very much an acting role. But he's nothing. I mean, it's not a lead role. And I was like, what the fuck? That is so offensive. So anyway, long story short, that was probably one of the worst moments probably of my entire life. Like, there's like my dad dying, and then there's like, oh, and people were, okay, I have one more thing to say. Some folks were like, talking about your dad is a trauma dump. Bro, that's real life, my guy. That is real life. If you can handle a person mentioning that their parent died, I am concerned for you, because that shit sucks. Now, obviously, everyone's life situation is different. Some people don't get to have parents. Some people's dads suck. Some people's dads are alcoholics and drug users, and they hurt them. So, of course. But like, I had a dad. And so like, my dad was my best friend. That shit's real. Like, I watched him take his last breath. I even asked him, I said, Dad, can I go upstairs? You seem like you're okay. My dad had no more strength at this point in his life because he was literally about to die. And with his head and with his hand, he said, no, don't leave. That's how much my dad, because he knew that I wanted to be there for that, because it was really important for me to be a part of that. He was there for me when I was born. So why wouldn't I want to be there when he had died? My dad honored me that night. And anyway, this is getting kind of crazy, but I hope you really had a good time listening to those stories. Long story short, opera sucks.